Hey guys, it's Katie Kelly, and today we're going to be installing the S&B cold air intake, part number 755070 on the 2003 to 2007 6.0 Ford Powerstroke. Before we get started, you'll notice that the installation instructions are in the plastic bag with the lid along with the carb sticker, so you'll just want to go ahead and take them out and follow along. With the truck off and the parking brake set, it's time to disconnect the negative terminals on both batteries. It's a good idea to put a rubber glove over it so it doesn't come back in contact. And now we're on the other side doing the exact same thing. If equipped, you're going to disconnect the OE restriction gauge. Depending on what year truck you have, you're either going to have a MAF sensor or a temp sensor. And on this one, we're going to disconnect the MAF sensor. Depending on if you have the one piece or the two piece, you're going to disconnect the one piece out of the turbo and make sure to pull the breather out of the valve cover. If you have the two piece, you're going to disconnect right here at the bellows. And in this case, this truck is the two piece. To get a little bit more room to take the intake out, we're going to remove the hose to the coolant tank. So now it's time to take the stock intake out of the engine bay. So you're just going to want to make sure that the grommets didn't come out with the intake because they want to stay in the truck. We're going to pull off the OE restriction gauge and reuse this and the grommet, but in this case the grommet's bad, so we're just going to go ahead and replace it. Prior to installing the air box, you're going to want to make sure that the clamp on the intercooler pipe is rotated off to the side so it doesn't interfere. Now it's time for my favorite part, attempting to install the silicone box seal onto the air box. So I'll probably struggle with this, but you might not. It actually wasn't too bad. So next we're going to install the S&B intake box into the truck, and you're just going to make sure you push it all the way down or it'll interfere with the hood. At this point, if you had the single tube, the tube would no longer be here, and you would need to take the straight coupler and the hose clamps and install it onto the turbo. So then you'll have to uninstall the crankcase hose from the single tube and then install the grommet onto the short tube, and then once that's installed, you'll have to install the crankcase hose into the short tube and then connect it to the coupler that you attached to the turbo. Since that truck had two tubes, we don't need any of those pieces, so you can go ahead and put those to the side. And if you have the air intake temperature sensor, you're going to use the large grommet and then just push it down into the tube. We provide you with the correct tool to use to remove the mass airflow sensor. When installing the mass airflow sensor onto the new tube, you're going to want to line up the gasket and then insert the mass airflow sensor, and you want to make sure that the arrow is pointed towards the logo and use the provided hardware. We provide you with the filter minder grommet that you're going to insert into the tube, and this is going to block off any readings that you're going to get from the filter minder, but you should check your filter minder visually as opposed to a notification on the dash. Now that the grommet's in place, you're just going to insert the filter minder. Next, you're going to install the coupler completely onto the tube. And then install the clamps. I know we already installed the filter minder, but it might make it easier to pull it out and set it aside. We can reinstall it later. Next, we're going to install the intake tube into the air box. You just want to make sure that you push it all the way through the box seal and onto the turbo. Now that the tube's in place and the coupler slid over the short intake tube, you're just going to tighten down the clamps. Now it's time to install the filter. For the purpose of this video, we're going to use our 8-layer cotton cleanable, but we also have a dry extendable version. And don't forget to tighten the clamp. Whether you decided to take the filter minder out or leave it in during the install, you're just going to want to make sure that it gets connected. Now it's time to reconnect the mass airflow sensor or the temperature sensor. In this case, it's the mass airflow. Now it's time to peel the protective layer off the large clear S&B lid. And don't forget the small tedious pieces surrounding the S&B logo. It looks much better after, I promise. Last but not least, we're going to install the large clear lid onto the box. And don't forget to use the provided hardware. You're probably wondering why you have an extra piece lying around. Well, don't worry, you didn't do anything wrong. But for those who want additional airflow, we give you a silicone inlet lid that goes in place of the clear plastic lid on top of the airbox. Remember to reattach the negative terminals on both sides, tighten them down, and then you're good to go. Don't forget about your carb sticker. You're going to want to place it on the body close to the intake. It has all the valuable information. This intake has a 42.47 increase in airflow over stock. And if you have any other questions, go ahead and visit our website at sbfilters.com, and we'll see you next time.